Hello everyone, Archana is here. Welcome to the 15th session of presentation in English. In today's session, let us learn about the poem Heaven If You Are Not on Earth, written by Kuvempu. About the poet, Heaven If You Are Not on Earth is written by K.V. Puttappa, Kuppalli Venkatappa Puttappa, popularly known by the pen name Kuvempu. National poet of Kannada, he is immortalized particularly for his contribution to universal humanism, that is, Vishwa Manavatavada. He is acknowledged by the greatest poet of the 20th century Kannada literature. He is the first among 8 recipients of Jnanapita Award for Kannada. He is the second after M. Govinda Pai among Kannada poets to be revered as Rashtrakavi, a national poet. His work, Sri Ramayana Darshanam, the rewriting of the great ancient Indian epic Ramayana in modern Kannada, is regarded as a revival of the era of Mahakavya, epic poetry, in a contemporary form and charm. He is immortalized by some of his phrases, and in particular for his contribution to universal humanism, or in his own words, Vishwamanavatavada. He was conferred the Padma Vibhushan by Government of India. He has penned the Karnataka state anthem Jaya Bharata Jananiya Tanujate. The poem has been translated into English by Dr. C. Nagarna, a well-known poet, critic and translator. About the poem. In this poem, Kuvempu urges us to take note of nature as a dynamic entity. For him, heaven is not something beyond the boundaries of this world, since the earth itself possesses all that the so-called heaven promises. The poet's decisive inference that heaven is here on earth and nowhere else is seen from the beginning to the end. According to him, the stream, the waves, the splendor of harvest, the sunshine, and celestial eye, the moonlight, are all nothing but the reflection of that unseen paradise called heaven. The poet highlights nature and describes how human beings, with their behavior, might try to reach divinity. The entire poem is divided into 3 stanzas, and the first 2 lines appear to be distinct. The poet feels that heaven cannot be anywhere else except on earth, because it is believed that heaven is supposed to be on a higher field far away from earth, and that it is only the blessed who can reach them. The poem is the English version of Swargave Bhumiyolliradire Neenu, a poem in Kannada written by Kuvempu, one of the most revered poets of Karnataka. The poem makes an attempt to give the reader a glimpse into the rationalistic outlook of the poet. The poet has tried to argue that concepts like heaven, God, nymphs, etc. are man's creations. Entities like heaven and God exist only on the earth, and you cannot find them anywhere else. The poet suggests that one should perceive divinity and enjoy the heavenly bliss in the company of nature itself. The poet strongly believes that heavenliness and worldliness are not distinct or 2 separate entities, and argues that there is no difference between worshipping or adoring nature and worshipping or adoring God. Now, let's deal with the poem. Heaven, if you're not here on earth, where else could you be? If we ourselves cannot be gods, then there can be no gods. If we ourselves aren't heavenly nymphs, the nymphs are not elsewhere. While this roaring stream rushes fast, rolling sunshine leans on verdant gardens, and then the gentle sun make this earth heaven. In the splendor of harvest and of moonlight, heaven lies all over. imbibing and spilling the song of nectar. The poet does create heaven on earth. Heaven, if you're not here on earth, where else could you be? In the first two lines, the poet addresses heaven and declares emphatically that if heaven does not exist on the earth, where else can it be? It only means that the reader need not look for heaven where in the sky. If at all there is an entity called heaven, one must find it on the earth only and nowhere else. The poet, in an extraordinary way, tries to proclaim that heaven is supposed to be here on earth and not somewhere far away, and very lightly justifies it. If we ourselves cannot be gods, then there can be no gods. If we ourselves aren't heavenly nymphs, the nymphs are not elsewhere. The poet refers to our beliefs about gods and heavenly nymphs, fairies. The poet expresses his conviction that there is no distinct or substantial entity called God, and it is man himself who is God. Similarly, there exist no entities called heavenly nymphs. He firmly believes that we ourselves are the nymphs, and the nymphs are to be found nowhere else but on this earth only. The poet wants to dispel the popular notion that God and nymphs live in heaven. The poet, who wants to dismiss such beliefs, that tells the reader that we ourselves should become gods and nymphs. The poet wants us to give up our belief that we go to heaven after death where we find gods and nymphs. The gods, according to the poet, are supposed to be here on earth, and he equates it to good behavior and concern of a few people, rightly so with the heavenly nymphs too. While this roaring stream rushes fast, rolling surf at the edge of waves, the tender sunshine leans on verdant gardens, and then the gentle sun make this earth heaven. The poet tries to introduce us to the different forms or parts of heaven that exist on the earth. He presents a mesmerizing picture of nature in its pristine form. The poet states that the bliss that we experience when we look at the streams that are leaping down, roaring from the top of the hills, the waves that come rolling across the seas carrying surf at their edges, the tender rays of sunlight falling on the vast expanse of green forest, and the gentle sun warming up the earth make this earth heaven. The poet describes nature and tries to concentrate on a few divine aspects as per his analysis. He focuses on the concept of a river trying to negate its existence while it merges in the ocean or sea, and how beautiful the entire atmosphere is when the waves reach the shore, forming a surf. On the other hand, the tender sunshine is spread on the greenery, and this beautiful spectacle is equated to a heavenly experience on earth. In the splendor of harvest and of moonlight, heaven lies all over. Imbibing and spilling the song of nectar, the poet does create heaven on earth. The poet refers to the beauty of the harvest season and the moonlit night. He declares that one enjoys heavenly bliss when one watches the splendor of harvest and the moonlit night. The poet ends the poem saying that the poet who imbibes this heavenly bliss spreads the nectar of heaven through his poetry on the earth. The poet in the last stanza tries to convey us how the nature around us appears to be very lovely, and especially so during the harvest time. when the farmers rejoice as they have had a very good yield, and this enjoyment comes to life on a full moon day, and such a spectacle is equated to heaven. The poet tries to imbibe and spill the essence of nature so that the readers who are unable to enjoy nature the same way as the poet does will get an opportunity to visualize nature through the poet's description. To conclude, the poet feels that it is the poet, through a beautiful narration of nature, has created heaven on this earth. The line, heaven lies all over, suggests that the beauty of heaven lies in the splendor of harvest and the moonlit night. So that the poet creates heaven on earth by imbibing the beauty of nature and spilling the nectar of heaven on the earth through his poetry. A poet is endowed with a higher degree of imagination and sensibility. With these qualities, the poet appreciates nature's beauty, and in turn, the poet enables others to behold the heaven on earth. Let us conclude the poem. The poet Kuvempu highlights nature and describes how human beings, with their behavior, might try to reach divinity. The entire poem is divided into three stanzas, and the first two lines appear to be distinct. The poet feels that heaven cannot be anywhere else except on earth, because it is believed that heaven is supposed to be on a higher field far away from earth, and it is only the blessed who can reach them. The poet feels that heaven cannot be anywhere else other than on earth. He continues with the same idea and further feels that if we cannot be gods, then there can be no gods, and the same with heavenly nymphs, angels. He expresses this idea with a strong belief that human beings are a combination of divine and demon qualities. And the moment the divine qualities excel, he turns to be almost to an angel. Beautiful description of nature is presented here in this poem. A river or stream rushes fast and reaches the sea and loses its identity, and the waves roll back as surf onto the shore. The sunshine is quite tender and acceptable to nature, and this sunshine is spread throughout the green garden. When we see a combination these beautifully working in nature, then it is equated to heaven. It is equal to heaven. Where is the heaven? Heaven is on this earth, on the earth. The poet tries to describe the joy of God, harvest as experienced by the farmers. And when it is night, the presence of the moon further tries to create heavenly atmosphere. And this beautiful nature, as experienced by the poet, is converted into words and written in the form of a lyric or a poem. And this creature of literature is bound to create heaven on earth. And in this circumstance, the poet who creates heaven through his poetry or song. The poet here attempts to demystify human notion of heaven. It is that blissful state that makes the poet realize the heavenly experiences in the company of nature on earth. He shares his emotions with readers. He finds divine creation all pervasive, that he can't stop glorifying the beauties on earth. So Kuvempu wonders, in this state, if heaven is not on earth, where else can it be? As he finds it, the experience of God is within us, just an extension of good qualities. If we fail to imbibe these virtues, there can be no gods. The most beautiful heavenly maids are amidst us and within us. If we can see such nymphs, angels, right around us, then they are nowhere else. Nature's creations have such an eternal influence on the poet's mind that the roaring stream, rolling waves, and the verdant gardens look gilt under the tender sun. The poet captures the splendor of harvest under the moon light and spills all over the earth, turning it into a heaven. Kuvempu, who is the high priest of nature, is filled with his joyful experience of heaven. The poet rightly says that only one who is soaked in this experience can create heaven on earth. This poem, which is written by Kuppalli Venkatappa Puttappa by the pen name Kuvempu, is really beautiful and delightful. To sum up, the poet urges that we do not need to seek heaven after death, but can enjoy heavenly bliss even when we are alive. If only we have eyes to see heaven on this earth. Heaven exists only on the earth and nowhere else. One is sure to enjoy the pleasures of heaven when one looks at the splendor of nature. The poet urges the reader to perceive the tremendous energy that lies underneath the physical beauty of nature. This idea can be taken as the message of this poem. So here we have wired up the poem. Take down the home assignment. Answer the following questions in a paragraph. First question, describe the beauty in nature that makes the earth a heavenly place. Second question, why does the poet feel that earth is more beautiful than heaven? Third question, how does the poet break the myth of heaven in this poem? Fourth question, how does the poem celebrate the power of the poet? Thank you, students.